you expecting rain today? Is that why you came inside, or the field's just too wet out there after the last few days?
They're still pretty wet. I went out there right before to try to check it because we wanted to go out there, and it was still misting a little bit, and the grass was wet. So it's gotten a lot of moisture on it. So, you know, we just didn't feel like we could do it.
Ken, you've talked a lot about how you want to run the ball better. Is it one of those things that it's across the board in the run game you've got to get better at, or are there specific areas that, you know, that need more improvement than others?
I mean, we didn't run it very good at all last year, so I'd say across the board we've got to get better at it. You know, a big part of that, I mean, we're working on it now, but a lot of that's got to come in camp when you get the pads on. You're just limited in what you can do in the OTAs, and you can really work on the techniques, fundamental things. And that's what we're trying to do, like the course with the back, like the double teams with the linemen. But part of the run game is the back's getting a sense of where the holes are going to be and being patient. And, you know, sometimes you can't do that until you get the pads on, even in preseason games.
You said last week that Sankey missing all this time was a big deal. Is Cobb being limited a similar situation, or is he better off just by the fact that he's here at least?
Well, like for today, for instance, in the individual period, even though he's not quite full speed yet or can't quite do it, he can at least go through the reps of the ball handling. So, I mean, that's much more than what Bishop had. Bishop wasn't even here. And then when you're standing behind it and we're doing a pressure period where the defense is really coming, you know, there's communication about the protections and how we're doing it. So that's the kind of stuff that's invaluable, as opposed to maybe getting a tape later and not having an idea of how everything was put together or communicated.
Don't want to get you in trouble with the league, but that rule that certain guys that have school that's still to be finished and can't come out and practice in this and what essentially is their job now, is that a rule that needs to be looked at by the league and maybe changed a little bit because of situations like Bishop last year?
You know, that's the NCAA and the NFL have had discussions about that, and they've reached a place where that's what we're working with. So if anything of that were to change, that's certainly above my pay grade.
But in a situation like that, you're in the draft room and there's two guys who are even at the same position. One guy can be here early and one guy can't. Does that factor into your decision?
You know, there's so many things that go into those players. How they learn, where they are, those kind of things, that it's all part of the equation, evaluating them.
You fearful of DGB falling behind receiver hamstrings in the spring?
As long as we get it healthy, I'm not so much concerned about that. Would I like to see him getting some reps? Yeah, you always want that, especially when you get a guy where we got him. He could use this work, but you know, we'll still have a lot of reps in training camp, and hopefully he'll get out here maybe Thursday, but hopefully for sure by next week.
Ken, how much of a make or break year is this for Justin Hunter?
You know, I don't know what you qualify as make or break. I mean, I think receivers in this league, usually you figure second or third year you have a pretty good read for where they are. And this going into his third year, it's an important year for him. So I think that's really the league in general now, with the fourth year being free agency, and even nowadays, you know, when you're evaluating players, you got to have a pretty good feel for those guys when they get to that point.
Does he have to feel a little bit like, you know, pressure is on me to went with real Green back in the draft, and brought in Harry Douglas. We're doing some things here at my position. This might not bode well for me.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a competitive business. It's a competitive industry. So, you know, I'm sure anytime you go through a draft or you have a season like we did, there's going to be competition at a lot of positions, and you need that. So if it helps make Justin better, if it helps make all of our guys better, that's what we want.
What do you want to see from him that will say to you he's better?
Well, we've got a lot of plays to go through yet. You know, it's hard to put a qualification on exactly one thing you need to see. I mean, it's going to be a body of work over the period that we have, whether it's OTAs or even training camp. But you'll get one-on-one opportunities to assess him. You'll see how he does in zone. You know, some of it is techniques, being in the right spot, those kind of things. So just like we're looking at other guys.
How important is speed for the inside linebackers in this defense, and how much do you like the speed you have there right now?
Well, I mean, we look good when we're out here running around in shorts. You know, I think sometimes reaction speed is faster than what actual playing speed is, and a lot of that you can't see until really you get in there with the pads and they're having to diagnose the plays. Even sometimes when you're preparing for an opponent, some of these guys are so smart, they anticipate what's coming and they get to a spot faster than what they could do physically because, like I said, they see it coming. So, you know, that's all a part of, I guess, seeing actual play.
Defense seems louder, and some of them said that Dick said that if I can't hear you, you're not loud enough. How much of a point of emphasis maybe has that been on defense, that guys communicate in a very loud fashion?
Well, it definitely has. Dick's done a good job of emphasizing that. We tried to do that last year, and we didn't do a good enough job of it. So that's one of the things we knew we had to do better, and it's something that Coach LeBeau also believes in. So I would agree with you, Paul. I think it is louder out here, and that's good.
Is there maybe a side benefit outside of making sure that you're communicating it to some guys seem to have an additional swagger with it, like, I know what I'm doing, I'm in command here, hear this?
Yeah, I mean, well, we can use all the swagger we can get as long as we can back it up. You know, that's really what it comes down to. But when you work hard, when you're prepared, when you communicate, maybe it's knowing what they do. You know, a byproduct of communicating is you're more confident in what you're doing because you know what you're doing, and that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Back to the running game, Sylvester was talking about how he has tried to break it down to the most fundamental things with the backs. Have you had experience with that before, where it's just kind of wipe the slate clean because it was so rough the previous year that we're just going to start from ground zero almost?
You know, I don't know if wipe the slate clean is exactly what typifies it. I mean, yeah, we had our struggles last year. There were some times where we did run it okay. Some of it was, I mean, let's face it, being behind in games, which we were a lot, it's hard to run the football. And do we have to be better at it? Sure we do. But I think with young backs like we have, it is really important that you understand the course that you take, where the holes are potentially going to be. I mean, it still comes down to being able to read it and being able to make the cuts. But I don't think there's anything wrong with making sure you focus on techniques and fundamentals. And I think that's what Sylvester's trying to get done with these guys.
Anything else? You see that National Public, I know preseason polls mean nothing, but when a guy says that he ranks you guys dead last, what do you think about that?
What do you expect? I mean, what do you expect us to be first? No. So that's okay. I mean, you know, look, I've said we got to prove to our fans, we got to prove to a lot of people that we can be a better football team than we were. So it doesn't make any difference, you know.